Hey all, this is Chris Vetrano, and you're listening to Listen, It's Vetrano The Gist, a new pop culture podcast that brings you the hot takes on everything making headlines today, interviews with celebrity guests, and revisiting the moments from pop culture's past. It's unfiltered, it's uncensored, and it all starts right now. Hello, I am Chris Vetrano, and you are listening to The Gist. This is a pop culture podcast talking about all the things that are in the headlines today. Over the course of the next few episodes, you're going to get to know me. You're going to get to know some of my friends. You're going to get to know some celebrity guests. We're going to deep dive on some of pop culture's biggest moments of the past. We're going to talk a lot about music, movies, television. You know, we're really here to have a lot of fun. You can really think of this, I think, as the water cooler moments that you probably don't have now that most people don't work in offices. But those water cooler moments that we once used to have, going into work, having a conversation with our neighbor or a colleague about the things that you watched last night, your hot takes on them. That's what we intend to do here at The Gist. And so I'm excited to get going. I'm excited about this new platform. For those that are new to The Gist and to Listen, It's Vetrano, I have been a writer of my blog, Listen, It's Vetrano, for many years. And I also worked in the music industry for a number of years. And so we'll be talking a little bit about some of my stories and that. We'll talk about my personal experiences with pop culture. And then, like I said, we've got some celebrity guests that are going to be stopping by, who are going to share some of their hot takes on pop culture, but also maybe share some insider secrets on some of the things that are happening behind the curtain in the entertainment space. And so excited to be doing this. And this is episode 1. So, you know, there is more to come. I hope that you guys will all follow this journey with me and give me a couple of episodes to really kind of get my feet wet here. And so if you could do me a quick favor and subscribe to The Gist, that helps me know that you're listening. And then also leave comments and let me know what you'd like to hear more of on this podcast. I have a feeling that we'll be doing our best to cover as much of that as possible, because it can't always be a one-sided conversation here. So, but today, before we kind of get into the regular operating rhythms of The Gist and sharing kind of the quick, snappy takes on what's happening in the world and in the entertainment space, we're going to look back. We're going to, as we said at the top, this is a new year. It's 2023, but we can't really talk about the new year without looking back at what we're leaving behind, the moments that are going to become pop culture history of 2022. And so I picked 10 moments that meant the most to me in pop culture, or that grabbed my attention the most in pop culture. And we're going to just break them down today. So we're going to get right to it. So kicking things off, the first thing, obviously, I feel like this is probably going to make every pop culture top 10 list. So it's one that we don't have to spend a lot of time on, but it's, of course, the slap heard around the world. Will Smith slapping Chris Rock at the Oscars right before winning Best Actor for his role in King Richard. There was an altercation. I'm sure by this point everyone has seen it. Chris Rock said some jokes about Will Smith's wife. He put his name in her MF mouth and got slapped for it. A lot of feelings about this. I think people kind of had a side. Some people took up for Jada and said Will was defending her. Others were, on Team Chris Rock, like violence is never the answer. But what it did do for Will, outside of just giving him sort of a new persona in the industry. Was someone that was normally pretty, I think, fun-loving, easygoing, seemed like a pretty all-around good guy. People are definitely taking a step back, but for sure the Oscars are, because they banned Will Smith from the Oscars for the next 10 years. So that was his repercussions of slapping the presenter Chris Rock. So that, of course, had to make the list. But the next thing on my list, number 2, is the Johnny Depp Amber Heard trial. I remember our cousin Marin was the first kind of person that introduced me to it. I knew it was happening. I had heard a lot about it. I had seen some like viral clips of things, but I really didn't know that it was probably one of the greatest things I've ever watched in my life. And I don't want to oversell it, but I actually think that might be something worth we need to get it on DVD. I need to watch it, once a year. It was better than any Housewives. It was better than any dramatic reenactments on unsolved mysteries. It was better than any drama that Shonda Rhimes could have ever written. Beautifully acted by both Johnny Depp and Amber Heard. Honestly, everyone involved just played a huge role in that court case. And I couldn't believe when my cousin told me that it was all being televised. That was the part that I just really didn't understand and didn't know. I thought that we were just getting various clips through the entertainment outlets. I didn't know that you could literally watch this thing play out. And it was just a complete debacle in all the ways. I couldn't believe the things that people were talking about. I couldn't believe when, Amber was taking the stand and her reactions and the over-the-top drama that was happening. And so it was something that will definitely go down in the pop culture history books. Johnny Depp versus Amber Heard at number 2. Number 3 is Bennifer. Bennifer is back, y'all. And of course I'm talking about Ben Affleck and Jennifer Lopez. They originally dated from 2002 to 2004. Jennifer, at the time, she released a record called This Is Me Then. She had a song on it called Dear Ben. They were called Bennifer. The world was on fire for them. And of course, when they ended things, she was Jenny from the Block again, and kind of moved on to the next one. But, it was actually quite shocking. I don't think a lot of people saw it when they reconciled actually in 2021. But the reason that it's making the list in 2022 is that they got married. I don't think anyone saw that coming. Bennifer, we saw the headlines that Bennifer was getting back together. It seemed as though they were recreating scenes from a music video that they had shot back in 2002. And it was actually kind of wild. It seemed like it was just sort of a paparazzi play as Jennifer was kind of rebounding from her relationship with A-Rod. And then suddenly they were married, and she changed her name, not professionally, but she changed her name. She's now Jennifer Affleck, and is releasing new music this year with the inspiration from that 20-year-old record. Now, 20 years, by the way, that's a long time to have then reconciled. But the 20-year-old record, This Is Me Then, she's now going to be releasing a new record called This Is Me Now. And the track listing has a song called Dear Ben 2.0. So this is certainly 2.0. The only thing is, they got married in 2022. They started dating in 2002. They ended their relationship in 2004. So let's hope that it's not This Is Me Then and Now and it's over, because that would be unfortunate. And but yeah, everyone seems to be pretty supportive of these two. So let's get them back together. While we're at it, maybe Brad and Jen could get back together too, because that pair certainly was one of my favorite celebrity pairings, beyond Justin and Brittany, but I know that will never happen. We'll do a whole episode on Brittany at some point, guys. I'm not ready to talk about it. All right. Anyways, number 4, Pete Davidson making the rounds. So here's a guy, Ariana Grande, they get engaged. She writes a song. They end the engagement. She writes a song, Thank You Next. She talks about his big thingy, and suddenly everyone wants a piece of Pete Davidson. And in 2022, obviously, he dated Kim Kardashian. They went to the Met Gala together. Kim Kardashian ripped the Marilyn Monroe dress, not her Marilyn Monroe dress, the actual Marilyn Monroe dress. But Pete was her date, and it was pretty wild. He left SNL, and quite frankly, I was not sure that this guy was going to have like a lot of longevity in our mouths, and here we are still talking about him. So Pete Davidson is just making the list because he was somebody that we talked about. He was rumored to be dating other people on the rebound, but ultimately Kim Kardashian kind of like brought him on the Kardashians on Hulu, but he really didn't show up very much. So I think there's questions of whether he was edited out or if maybe they just overplayed his cameo, I think in one episode. But yeah, so Pete Davidson is number 4. Number 5, R.I.P. We lost some huge pop culture icons in 2022. So I'm just kind of grouping them together, having our, paying tribute to these legends that we leave behind in 2022. Obviously, Leslie Jordan. For those of you Will and Grace fans, Beverly Leslie, one of the best characters on television, always made me laugh. But Leslie Jordan was such a character. He definitely had a presence here in Nashville, playing at the Grand Ole Opry a number of times. He was just like he just seemed like he had such a good heart and just like this truly nice person that never saw bad in the world. And he just played some hilarious characters. And so it was very sad when we lost him. Of course, the world also lost comedian Bob Saget, who, for me growing up, Danny Tanner was, the dad that raised us all. I probably have my OCD cleaning from him because I watched him try to keep things together in that Full House of his with his, I can't remember, were they brothers? The Uncle Jesse, Uncle Joey, but I don't think they were brothers. I think they were friends. But either way, back in the day, Bob Saget, he was such a beacon of what the kind of perfect dad sort of looked like on television on that show. Later, he turned out to be a raunchy comedian, which was a bit of a 180, but he was really loved, and, it was really unfortunate to hear that he had passed, obviously way too young. And then also Barbara Walters, right at the very tail end of the year, we lost Babs, Babwa Wawa, as she was known to many. But she was, truly a legend and an icon and a trailblazer in the news media. And obviously, things that come to mind for me with Barbara Walters and from a pop culture perspective is, Sherry O'Terry playing her. But the fact that she created the show, The View, that is still on today, but all of the kind of pop culture moments, Rosie versus Elizabeth Hasselbeck. But really my favorite thing that I always think of when I think of Barbara Walters is Kathy Griffin. Man, the two of them really had a go at it. And Kathy just loved sort of ruffling her feathers. And, I don't know if that was in a real positive way. I don't know if they had a lot of like light behind that relationship, but I certainly enjoyed watching it play out, especially when Kathy would come on to The View and guest host, and she would really try to push Barbara's buttons over and over and over, and so it was pure comedy. But R.I.P. to them. And then also, I guess we should mention that we lost the Queen this year, or last year rather, and she was part of that list as well. And a lot of pop culture stuff plays out in that, with what's going on with Harry and Meghan, and them leaving the royals, and now we've got a new King Charles, but yes, the Queen also passed away in 2022. So it was a big year for a lot of big personalities and big pop culture icons leaving us too soon. Number 6, Elon Musk bought Twitter. So in April, he planned to buy Twitter. I think he was going to buy it for, what do I have it somewhere? $44 billion. And it was a lot of talk. There was a lot of talk of, is he going to really pay that? Is that deal going to really go through? Is it going to be a hostile takeover? Is there, there was all kinds of things talked about. And it took until, so that was in April that he announced it, but it took until October of last year when the deal actually, in fact, happened. And then it was like chaos ensued. It reminded me of Y2K. Everyone was talking about how everything was going to shut down, the world was going to shut down, and no one really knew what was going to happen. And people were like writing their goodbyes on Twitter. People were saying, "This is my last tweet." And it was really wild. And then the next morning, nothing actually happened. Twitter didn't go down. Musk is still running the company. He's made a number of changes to the platform, which has like resulted in a lot of celebrities leaving Twitter. But I think ultimately the platform seems to still be around and potentially thriving. So it'll be interesting to see how this plays out in 2023. But people did not think that Elon Musk was going to buy Twitter. And he's added it to his family of brands now. And so let's see what happens. Speaking of kind of crazy pants, the number 7 is just that Kanye West, he's having had what is still currently, having a meltdown. There's not a lot I want to talk about Kanye West, because really I think that this person needs probably professional help, and that we need to probably stop giving him attention, because the attention seems to only be breeding further pandemonium and craziness and really damaging things that he's saying and making people believe. And so I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about him, but he definitely made headlines a lot. And let's hope for some peace of mind and peace for Kanye West in 2023. Number 8, Harry Styles. So I'm just gonna start with Harry Styles, because this, in 2022, it was really his year. I mean, he had a hit album with Harry's House. He had 2 movies come out. I think he's had only one other movie before this year, but he had 2 movies in which he was the star, Don't Worry Darling and The Policeman. And he was doing a sold out arena tour to support Harry's House. And so the guy was busy. He was also dating Olivia Wilde. But I think that the moment that we're going to always remember, and we're going to always talk about 2022, is the fact that did he or didn't he, I think is still the question, but spitting on his co-star, Chris Pine, at the premiere of Don't Worry, Darling. I remember seeing this when this news broke. And of course, everything is captured on film these days. And so there's video. Harry's going to take his seat next to Chris Pine. Chris Pine's sitting. Harry bends over. People think he spits because Chris Pine looks down. He looks back up. He's looking as though he just got spat on. And Harry has a bit of a glow on his face afterwards. So it really, there was a lot of drama around that film, obviously, with Florence Pugh and Olivia Wilde and Harry Styles, and the cast just seemed to not be getting along at all. But then there was a lot of like hilarious, by the way, if you like, you got to go find them if you haven't, but hilarious takes on the did he or didn't he spit, where some people, turned it into a meme of like a goat flying on top of Chris Pine's lap that jumps off. People did like really hardcore analysis and zoom in where they claim they can see the actual spit coming out of his mouth, and like they follow it like through the air hitting Chris Pine. Chris Pine has come out and said that that didn't happen, and that he was simply looking for his sunglasses and thought that he had lost them, and then looked down and realized they were in his lap the whole time. I don't know. The story's not really adding up because, one, it doesn't make sense, but something tells me that some really good publicist had a hand in this and sort of shaped that story, and then it sort of went away. Maybe also because the movie was not that good, and the hype of the movie did not live up to when you actually watched the film. So that could have also been why people stopped talking about it. But I don't think that people will forget the moment that Harry Styles spit on Chris Pine. And I'm just going to go with that he did, because I think that gives us something to continue to talk about. Number 9 is Rihanna. So Rihanna, she was obviously, people for years and years and years have been pining for new Rihanna music. She didn't deliver a new album this year, but she did deliver a child. And so Rihanna with her partner A$AP Rocky, they had a baby together in 2022. A lot of people were a little bit crazed because they said, okay, she's having a baby. That means she's not going to give us music. She's not going to go back on tour. She's not going to do these things that we've been waiting so patiently for years now. And she's been kind of teasing and that it's coming, and then it never seems to actually come. So she had the baby, and so people were like, kind of had given up, I feel, and said, she's not going to release new music. And then she was announced as the Super Bowl halftime show. And so we're weeks away at this point from the Super Bowl. And so we're weeks away from seeing Riri hit the biggest stage in the world, the Super Bowl halftime show, and delivering all of her hits, I hope. There's a lot of them, so there are certainly going to be some fans disappointed, I'm sure, in which one she goes with, but needless to say, she did make people talk in 2022, and then she did deliver new music. So despite all of the people saying that she wouldn't when she had the baby, she released a new single, which was part of the Black Panther soundtrack, or the Black Panther sequel soundtrack. A little bit of a snooze fest, in my opinion. Not something that I had been waiting years and years for from Rihanna, but I am super excited for the Super Bowl. So perhaps Rihanna's going to make us continue talking in 2023. I have heard rumors that she may be following the Super Bowl with an announcement of a stadium tour. So we'll see what happens there, and I'm sure we'll talk about it again on this pod. But I think Rihanna ended up getting us talking again this year, and she had some pretty big moments. And then the last thing that is on my list, number 10, is well, I guess we'll just say Kathy Hilton versus Lisa Rinna on Real Housewives of Beverly Hills. So the drama that ensued on that show this year was actually pop culture changing for a couple of reasons. And some people are probably like, really, Chris, you went through the entire list of pop culture moments. You really hit some of them on the nail. And then the others, you saved Kathy Hilton and Lisa Rinna for the end. Well, I did that on purpose because while what happened on the actual show, if you're a Housewives fan, you probably watched this play out, was your common Housewives fodder. There was an accusation made, somebody over dramatized it. Rinna had to talk about it, otherwise she would get cancer. She was unforgiving of Kathy Hilton for this thing that had happened that the cameras, of course, didn't capture. But I think the reason that it makes the pop culture list for me, and one of the top 10 biggest moments of the year, is that all of this played out in the media before the show ever went. And I feel as though we're hitting a tide. The tide is turning on the Housewives franchises because now they are so popular and there are so many outlets that talk about the Housewives so regularly that we have to be very careful, or producers have to be very careful about the filming and about the things that are happening in these housewives' day-to-day lives, because this was one of those examples where the ladies went to Aspen and, there was rumblings that something had happened at a club with the housewives filming there the night before. And then we cut to Kathy Hilton's Instagram where she is commenting on her husband Rick's photo saying, "Get me out of here." And that in itself spawned all kinds of news stories. Kathy Hilton, being coptered out of Aspen in emergency because of a fight that took place at a nightclub. Kathy Hilton launches slurs at the employees of the Caribou Club. There was all kinds of these headlines making news. And so people were chomping at the bit for the new Real Housewives of Beverly Hills season and just wanted to see what was actually going to play out. And then when it did, it was a real letdown, right? Because it cuts to the girls getting out of the van to go into the Caribou Club. We're all shaking physically. I'm sweating. I'm ready for it. And of course, then it cuts to Lisa and the other ladies starting to retell a story, but we have no footage of it. And everybody's story is super different. And then Lisa Rinna seems to be the only one that was around when Kathy had this alleged meltdown that she was stomping on her glasses and saying horrible things about the women and saying that she was going to take down Kyle, her sister, and also take down Bravo and NBC and Peacock and the president, and who knows what else Rinna was saying. But that was it. It was like her voice versus Kathy's, and Kathy instantly turned around in the next episode and apologized to her sister and said, "Hey, I said some nasty things about you, but I also drank too much in Aspen. It was high altitude, and I showed my ass. Sorry about it." And that was that. But Rinna couldn't let that storyline go. And so it ended up really turning on her. I think what she thought it was going to be this like big Kathy Hilton takedown, and really it ended up being a Lisa Rinna takedown, where everyone at BravoCon was booing her as she came out. She's really truly kind of the new Omarosa, the villain on our reality screens. But it was but again, it makes the Pop Culture 2022 list because it really is changing the game in the way that Housewives is being filmed. Because now there's already, production happening on some of the shows that are going to go in 2023, and there's news stories about the storylines that are happening, the cast changes that are happening. We're getting to know these ladies before the show can build a narrative, and so it's really going to change the game, I think. And so I put it on the list for that reason, because I think Housewives is such a pop culture thing. It's going to continue to be, but in 2022 I think is the year in which they're hitting their stride and saying, we've got to make some changes. We've got to figure out how to make this show a little bit more relatable to the things that are happening in real life and the real-time stories that are coming out. But I think, the producers are really starting to pick up on that. And I think we're seeing that also play out, especially on The Real Housewives of Salt Lake City this season, where the producer shot this entire season of Jen Shah telling us that she was innocent. And tomorrow, this is going to come out after the news, so I don't know the sentencing, but Jen Shah's being sentenced tomorrow. So by the time you guys hear this, you guys will already know what she was sentenced to jail time. If she got jail time, I'm assuming she will. But she ended up pleading guilty after the series wrapped. And so it's the whole season of her saying that she's innocent and that she's not guilty and that she's going to trial. And it's this big lead up to the season finale of her going to trial. And then she ends up pleading guilty and everyone knows it in the news. And so now everyone's calling this season of Salt Lake City a flop era because, quite frankly, it is. I mean, it's like we already know what happens and the storyline no longer makes sense. So 2022 is the year in which the tides turn for Housewives. So I am interested to see what happens with that. But anyways, I have gone down my rabbit hole long enough. I feel like this is the right time to put a pause on this first episode. Those are my top 10 moments of 2022. I am excited to leave that year in the past and am so looking forward to what is to come in 2023, especially this new podcast. And hopefully, if you're still listening, if you've stuck it around this long, thank you. Thanks for being here. Thanks for listening. I don't know if being here is the right thing to say. I'm still working on that. But thanks for tuning in. And, as I said, please subscribe, please rate, let me know how you're liking the podcast, give me comments. I want to hear from you. I'm at CM Vetrano. That is CM V as in Victor, ETRANO on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok. Slide into my DMs. Let me know what you want to hear more of on this podcast. But we're planning to be here. We've got another episode in store coming next week. And then in 2 weeks from today, we're going to have our first guest stopping by for our first deep dive into some pop culture with a very, very special guest. So you don't want to miss that. So make sure you subscribe. And thanks again for listening. Bye.